Welcome to the, what do we call these? Canada 150 Library Oral History Project. I think I know all of you, so I don't need to introduce myself. But thanks for coming. Basically, the purpose of this project was the library approached us here at the museums to work with them. The museums had done a couple oral history projects in the past, and they wanted to, for lack of a better term, add depth to the photographic collection that they already had. So an opportunity to do a Canada 150 project, and we said it was a great way for us to sort of start working with them on this type of project. And really what this is that, you know, the library has, as all of you I think here know, the library has a huge photographic collection. It has a great memory of what this community looked like and was. And you know, using this one as an example, we can research who owned it, when they owned it, and where. But what we wanted to get out of this project was the flavor of this picture, or the buildings, or the people that worked there. What was it like going down there? Now, I don't think any of you actually knew this building, but that's another story. But you know, when we talk about these, hey, how you doing? Want to join us? So what we're looking at is for the flavor of these pictures, flavor of the buildings, flavor of the community, to see, you know, who worked at these places, who lived there, who did you talk to, what did you buy in different stores, and you know, really provide us some depth and to what the collection is down at the library. So Carrie might go a little bit, I'll sort of introduce Carrie Bosco with the library, and you can sort of maybe fill in what I didn't say there.
Oh, well, I better not cross in front of the camera. Welcome. Clark and Suzanne and Sarah from the museum have been graciously helping us facilitate these oral history programs, so thank you for coming. We're going to concentrate today on this exact area, the Main and Ferry area, and since I sent Clark some photos.
Just go see, you didn't send me that one.
I know, because we've been continuously trying to get various building owners to accept the poster. And so we just got Morris & Son Funeral Home Event Center, which used to be the old Drummond Library. We just got them to agree to put that poster in, which is kind of interesting because this is a merge of two photos. So I'll put them at the back on your way out. And also the Main Street Fire Hall, which is really an interesting picture with the horse and buggy fire crew from, good grief, 1920. So it was really interesting to see how they got around with the fire trucks in those days. So this is, again, a variety store right now. It's turned into a variety store. And we just got them to accept as well. And interestingly enough, in all of these projects, people have said, I have another photo for you, which is really kind of cool because we've acquired a few extra permissions and photos for the website. So please do check out the website. And I'm going to stop talking because we need to get going on our pictures here.
Yeah, and actually, don't put those in the back. We'll work those out. We'll work those in.
Sure.
So, you know, the bigger pictures, so Carrie, as Carrie's mentioning, these are up this size or even larger. We have one out the back of the museum as well for the Victoria Fountain. Have been going up in businesses around and stores around the neighborhoods. We focused on the Main and Ferry, downtown, Chippewa, and the Stanford area, and they've been putting these up to sort of add again, characters and flavors of the area. So I'll come back to that one later, because actually it ties in well with the last one we got. So I'm not supposed to talk, which isn't very good for people in the room, especially my staff. No, that's not good, easy for me. This is about people who have experienced this community, have been in this community, to talk about what they know about the neighborhood, what they know about the buildings, the people who work there, the people who live there, and those types of things. So I'm just going to get started. I'm going to go through a few photos. I'll read you the history because each of the formats also provides a little bit of a history of the project. So this here, does anybody know? I bet nobody knows where this building was. It's not a quiz either. I don't usually start off with a quiz. This is Badger's Dairy. It was dairyman H.C. Badger opened a fine new dairy on Ferry Street in 1915. This was actually on the corner of Ferry and Ellen, which is now Chuck's Roadhouse Bar and Grill. Milk was brought in from the farmers and large milk cans. It was delivered by customers by milkmen, used horse-drawn wagons, and this can be seen in the 1915 photo. By the 1930s, the dairy was gone, and then many restaurants, souvenir shops took advantage of this location. So, starting with this building, again, I don't think anybody experienced the dairy that Mr. Badger ran, but at the corner of Helen and Ferry, does anybody remember any of the other restaurants or souvenir shops that were there, or have any recollections of anything that was at that corner? So the other thing this thing brings up to is dairies. Does anybody remember any of the other dairies that were in this community?
Gordon's.
What's that?
Gordon's is right behind.
Right behind there, yes.
Dell's Dairy on 4th Avenue, or second porch.
Okay, let's start with Borden's. What do people remember about the Borden factory? About Borden's Dairy?
Isn't that the one with, that one that had the big milk bottle?
Milk
in
bottle,
front
yeah.
of it?
It's
So,
a fancy hotel, isn't it?
it's the Sterling now, yes. Yeah. So the Borden Dairy, does anybody know anybody who worked there? Who, people who went, did you go into, I remember Brian Merrick told me he used to go pick up his milk there and talk to the people who worked there and all those types of things.
The
So
Karen's family owned that at one time. And they had a residence down on Valleyway and 2nd Avenue. And that's where Shirley Temple stayed at their place when she came to Niagara for the flicking of the lights.
That's interesting.
And what was interesting about that story, Shirley Temple, the flower guy came to the door with flowers for Shirley. And Shirley she was 16 at the time. She actually answered the door. And really shocked the guy delivering the flowers. But that's not Drummondville, that's down in Niagara.
Yeah. But do you remember any other memories of the owners? Nope. Okay, and sorry, go ahead.
I'm looking at that, and my great-grandfather, paternal, was a milkman, and he had that kind of thing. I think there's a picture of it in the Shriner collection, I think. Yeah, so who knows, that might be one of them. That might be, one of them might be him. I don't know.
Does anybody remember the milkman? Any
Well, not particularly that milkman. But
No,
but
no.
I remember them delivering with, not by a horse and buggy, but certainly by a van. And, going to the door and getting the milk and putting it in the big ice cube. I'm 74, so I guess that works. And I do remember Dell Dairy quite vividly, because Dell Dairy was on either 2nd or 3rd, but it went from one street to the other street, a long building which is still there. And that's where they had it.
Where is that?
I want to say between 3rd and 2nd Street. But you look at the building from the front now, it just looks like a residential home, but you look at it from the side and you see it goes all the way to the next street.
Oh, where's the house face? What street does the house face?
Again, I think it's 2nd Avenue it faces, but it's a long, long building. You wonder what's with that residential building. That's why it was, because that was a dairy.
Okay, so as I started, you go to one of, not this dairy, but other dairies, what do they smell like? What were the senses?
I remember I can't remember the name of the dairy, it started with D, but it was on Dixon Street, and I went to Ballview School, and we had a field trip, we went to the dairy, and we got a trail around the dairy, it smelled awful. It smelled like sour milk, it was really bad. Yeah.
What about, this is an interesting part of the town again, because it's almost at that, at this stage, certainly this is at the intersection, this is not a tourism thing, but it's right at the heart of sort of the Victoria. What was this mostly, from people's recollections of growing up, the Ellen and Ferry area, was that mostly domestic and an area where locals were running amok and it wasn't sort of
A large
absorbed
Italian
yet?
community in that area at the time, including my grandfather who lived almost right behind the place on Spring Street. And, yeah, a very large Italian community. The Aiellos, the Baldinellis, like, families were there for years and years and years.
It's also where Niagara Drive was, started by the Wing family. It was on Ferry Street, right across from the car wash.
Yeah,
And Niagara Drive was purchased by, was it Pepsi? Pepsi.
it
And,
started
Yeah.
as one and then
but you have
continued as the other, didn't it?
Yeah, you have bottles, you have photos of the bottle, which always had the falls on it, and it was, went all over the place.
Good
That
things
almost
were-
looks like two druggists on the left, as they call them in those days. So maybe that was part of the drugstore. Where was this again? That's supposed to be?
Ellen and Ferry, it's now
Ellen and
Chuck's
Ferry.
Roadhouse.
Yeah.
It was Johnny Peppers for a while there
Oh,
as
okay.
well.
Isn't it
Four brothers there?
Four brothers, right?
Yeah, and the Howard Johnson.
It's moved, it's changed names a couple times lately.
Isn't it
There were
behind
Howard
Casa?
Johnsons in that area too.
Sort of.
No,
Yeah,
you're thinking the other side.
Oh, okay, the
Yeah,
other
yeah,
side.
yeah. This is the side close to Ferry.
Yeah,
Okay, so moving on to the next one.
That's
A
Wilma Moore.
lot of us know this one.
Picture.
Many of us talk to Wilma a lot. Yeah, we got this one upstairs as well. So this is sort of talking about the BM&E Church and Pier Street. The BM&E Church in the background there was built in 1836. Was moved from the Falls View to the corner of Pier and Gray in 1890. It is a National Historic Landmark and an important part of the history of the Underground Railroad and freedom. This picture here is a 1930s photo of Reverend Dawson, and he's with Bob Plummer or Plumer in front of the church. So again, Pier Street certainly part of our black neighborhood. Again, I guess what was the Pier Street neighborhood like growing up in this neighborhood? Was it still a predominantly black neighborhood by the time most of you were around? And
There were still a few blocks in the area. I remember Jimmy Little,
And the Little family.
the Littles, the Washingtons.
Yep. And there's still descendants of those families
Yeah.
here.
anybody go to the church in the early stages?
Early.
Or early in your life, maybe?
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah. Early, well, I'm 180 and I've been into the church. It's remarkable. It almost has a feeling that you're going back in time because everything is kind of the same as it was, I'm sure, many, many years ago. And there was certain reverence that I find when I went into the building anyway.
Was that area of town at one time called Polytown?
Deborah, I'm looking at
Yes,
you.
it was.
Yeah?
This area, not the previous area.
Good for you.
No.
The Pier Street was Polytown.
Wonder how
No?
that name.
Sorry.
Where we are.
Yeah.
Polytown. It was nicknamed after, there was a man of color who I think fought in the War of 1812 and was granted a lot of that property. And he kind of distributed it to people who were coming in, which would include the Platos. And it ran from Stanley Avenue up in behind around Pier Street in that area. He had a large chunk of land that he would distribute it to the black people coming in. Some of them who were freshly freed slaves, as it were.
That
Okay.
was his last name? Sorry, I just didn't hear you. Pauly was his last name?
I don't know if his last name was Polly or that was
Or
his
nickname or
nickname,
something? Or-
but they called it Polytown.
Is where the first black mayor, I think, in the city of Niagara Falls came from. He went to this
For
church.
Plato.
That was very clear.
Yeah, was that?
Yeah, he was an alderman, wasn't he?
Was it alderman or mayor?
Yeah, alderman.
Oh, okay.
So, okay, focusing back on maybe the building itself, does anybody remember what it looked like? You know,
Now, was that building moved there, or is that the original location?
it was moved there, but well before your time.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Tom. Makes me feel better now.
Sites are set, like if you walked up and down Pier Street, you know, back when you were a kid, did you walk up and down Bear Street
Yes, I have.
when you were a kid?
My
So-
grandfather lived on Main, just the other side of Ferry. He had a big house there. Spend the day with my cousin and stuff. We'd go all through the area.
Right.
But, you know, as a kid, who pays any attention to churches? I mean, you walk by, you're headed for the Jolly Cutter, the Skyline Tower or something, you know?
Okay, so getting back to the individual, Bob Plumer, does that ring any bells to anybody? The individual in the photo?
Oh, he does a television show, he used to do television, it's not the same Bob.
Not the same Bob. You're just getting funny.
He was a member of the community, he ran Harriers. That's his grandfather, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Maternal, right? Which would be,
Yeah.
gotcha.
There was a man by the name of Reverend,
Guy.
sorry,
Go ahead.
there was a man by the name of Reverend Clark who lived in Windsor. He was quite elderly. And apparently he knew a lot of people in this Polytown area. When my mother-in-law died, it was requested that Reverend Clark come and speak. So I drove to Windsor to pick him up. And he was quite elderly then. He would not let me take him back to Windsor, insisted I drop him off at the train station, which I did. Several years later, when I was driving bus, I was in St. Catharines. And he comes walking over to get on the bus. Reverend Clark, I just couldn't believe it, because he had to be 75, 80, 10 years previously to that. And he was still in good health, and he was actually coming to the Drummondville area for another funeral. And I think he was actually possibly at one time the minister at this church.
Oh, he didn't like your driving or what?
Yeah, I never thought of
No, he
that.
finds you driving fast. Did he turn around and go to the train?
Well, he got on the bus.
Oh, okay.
All right, moving on. There's one. I think we'll get people going.
Still around?
No, it isn't. There's the Lundy House.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So there's the Lundy House as it stood now. Of course, again, most people know Homestead was built 1790 by the Lundy family and was redeveloped in 97 by the Canada One brand name outlets. Certainly this has a lot of discussion about what was lost at this point. Does anybody remember sort of going up the lane and what happened around?
Oh, it
this
had a
house?
water slide there after it was sold.
Yeah.
And then Canada One, and Lundy's, of course, are still around.
Picture of
It was
one
a great building, I remember.
of
Lots of open land on Lundy's Lane. I had the chance to buy some land years ago on Lundy's Lane. I missed it.
Oh, you should call him.
So the Lundy House, before it was torn down, what, does anybody remember visiting the house, going into the
I've
house?
never been there.
Yes,
Yeah?
my grandmother lived in that house. And I have a picture here of my mother and me and my two younger siblings and a cousin in front of the house. We would go there and play. And, yeah,
So what do you remember about the house?
I was young.
Yeah?
I was quite young. So I know there was hardwood floors, the hardwood floors. I remember that. Of course, a lot of wood in it, and it was in apartments. My grandmother lived in one of the apartments, and the last Lundy that owned it, I think, was June Lundy, and she pretty well didn't really want anybody else involved in it, and I understand that they tore it down because it was infested with termites or something, and it couldn't have really been saved for historical reasons, which would have been great. But I understand that she hadn't really asked for any of the Lundys to help maintain the home. But there was in the front of it, just because it was far back from the road, and in the front there was a china shop that was run by the Lundys, not June, it wasn't June, sorry. June was one who helped run it. Jean Lundy was the last one in the house. Yeah, but that was, and that, I don't know how long that was there for.
I remember there were people upset when the house was being demolished.
What's that?
There were people upset when the house was being
Oh, yeah.
demolished. But again, you're right about the infestation as far as I
Yeah,
reading.
yeah. And gee, why wouldn't she have gotten anybody to maintain it? And apparently she didn't ask, and apparently she was a little bit upset that nobody was helping her. She didn't really ask. So yeah, there was a lot of auction, and my brother actually got some of the wood and made a trunk out of it, which I have. It was my mother's, and I got it. It's a pretty big trunk made from the wood from the floor. Yeah. I have a lot of good memories there playing.
Yeah. So what was around the gardens, or was it forested in, or what was?
Yeah, there was a big, behind there was a lot of forest area. We weren't allowed to run around in there. I was,
Right.
there was a lot of forest area around it and behind it. In fact, I think there was it this house? No, it was another house, sorry. It was something else.
So, but then you played around, not in the forest area, so what was around the grounds, in the areas that you played, do you remember?
I'm not sure of the picture. Yeah, the house was, I took that from the research area.
Right.
And I just took this, but that, it was all covered in vines and it was probably,
At the back?
no, it would have been in the front here.
Okay.
It was probably this window. No, this window here. Yeah, because there's that line there. There's a little line.
That tree, I can remember that tree.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. It's kind of creepy looking.
It's winter. Most trees look kind of creepy in winter.
Thanks.
Did
That's great.
Now, Bill-
Rachel and Jean, sorry, did Jean and June,
Thank you. Did you see that? No, I wasn't
Yeah.
here.
Roxanne?
Yes.
did Jean and June have an awareness or a pride about being a Lundy and the significance of the house and having this road named after them? Or was it, you know how certain generations maybe wouldn't care about all of that?
Yes.
And then the next one was, what are you doing? We're involved in 1812. And
Yeah, it's an interesting story. It's between the Lundys and the Green, and I'm a descendant of the Greens also. So I can, some of the Lundys will say something, I'll go, if the Greens will say something, it's like, yeah, whatever. I don't really care, but apparently the Greens had the property on the corner where the old police thing was.
Montrose,
Yeah, and over in the Green Avenue and all that, so.
Green's Corners, yeah.
Yeah, so when they decided to name the street, they were actually arguing over Green's Lane, but Lundy's Lane was more alliterative, and it was a portage, it was a trail that they did use, and they opened it up. And so to compensate the Greens, they were given some property because they took some of the property. That's why they wanted that name back. So there was a big thing between the Greens and the Lundys, were like the Hatfields and McCoys.
So Roxanne, you're an UEL, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that I have, it's up in the research room. All the binders, I don't know how many binders there are there. Lots of stuff. Yeah, it's fascinating history. It really is. And I'm sorry, to answer your question, it didn't really mean much, although my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, she was Grace Lundy Bigger, and she married a Bigger, and she wanted to be known as Grace Lundy. She might have been Lundy's. And they were very proper and very, they wouldn't use plastic tablecloths. Just really, so the Lundys, it really didn't make any difference to my generation. I think, until I started doing the research, and then I found out. But I think my mother was, I think because her mother was the one that lived in the house. Yeah.
okay, what was the dialogue around the destruction of the house? Was it mostly just that it was a lost,
It fizzled out, it really didn't amount to much, but there are people that are interested in history. I don't think there was any great rebellion after they tore it down. People protested it, but it wasn't like some of the protests we had today.
By the way, William Lundy was not a UEL.
He wasn't?
No.
Oh. So you come from the green side then?
Well, actually, William Lundy married Nancy Silverthorne, and her father was a UEL. And that's how the Lundys, but, I actually told that, I think, to a Lundy, and they got upset. Didn't want to hear that.
So how did you become a UL then?
Well, William Lundy is my,
Right, but if he wasn't a...
Nancy Silverthorne was his wife, who was a UEL.
Oh, I got it, okay.
So it comes down
Yeah.
from that side,
Yeah.
from the maternal
Well, that's
side.
something you're very proud of.
Oh, definitely,
Yeah.
yeah. He was a Quaker, and he wouldn't fight. But I'm sure that, well, we know that the house was used for hospital and World War II, and Elizabeth Pearson Lundy was knitting all kinds of things, and lots of stuff.
As we're here, we're not, and what we're here for, I probably should have started off at the top, is really we're looking for, because again, some of that material has been researched and all that, it's really back to the flavor. It's what you yourselves experienced on these properties or saw there and all those types of things. So it's fine to digress once in a while, but sometimes we'll try and bring it back once in a while. So this is the next one. It's sort of going a little bit in the opposite direction down the lane. So that one's at the corner of Robinson and, I wrote it down just so I remember, no I didn't write it down, Robinson and Fallsview.
Wow.
Wire weaving factory. Now this section has been removed.
Pyramid Place.
Pyramid Place. Yep. So founded in 1919. Wire weaving factory was founded. And a large manufacturer right close to the falls, as the picture shows, or paint drawing. Plant closed in 1978, and of course became Pyramid Place, which was a complex of shops, restaurants, and the IMAX Theater opened up. So, there's a couple different directions we can go in this one. First off, let's start with the factory itself. Does anybody know anybody who worked at the factory, or?
My dad worked there.
Yeah.
From I think the late 40s until the early 60s, and then apparently there was some kind of a layoff. The last time I remember him working there would have been right around 1961, because they held their annual Christmas party at the Brock Hotel, and I attended. Shortly after that, I think he got laid off, and he ended up going to Springfield, Massachusetts, because somebody was looking for a wire weaver. And he got a job down there, and he spent 10 or 12 years down there in the Springfield area.
Okay, let me unpack that for a second. So first off, he's a wire weaver working there. What does a wire weaver?
I have no idea.
Okay.
That's just what I was told. I guess it operates a big machine and weaves wire.
Right.
Hangers, top of hangers?
What's that?
What's the wire used for then?
Yeah.
Once it's been
It's-
removed.
What's it used for?
Hangers?
Yeah, do you know what they made when you?
No idea. I just
No
remember
idea.
him working there as a kid. I never ever questioned him about it.
Did you ever go into the
Got a
factory?
chance to talk to him about it, not till it was Pyramid Place.
Okay.
Now, they did move to Thorstone Road, wire week.
I'm not sure.
You know where McDonald's
Really?
is on Thorstone Road, down the road.
The oil brass place?
Yeah, was that the wire weaving at one time? I don't know, I'm intrigued by the building itself. I don't know, are they windows, I wonder, or?
Yep. Yep, those are windows.
That's kind of interesting because, of course, the Nabisco plant across the way in Niagara Falls, New York, had windows like that, and they called it the Light Palace. Because that was very unusual to have windows
In a
in a
factory.
factory, but it improved the morale, and then they also introduced a brake, which was something new in North America.
Okay, I want to get back to Patrick for a minute. Christmas party, what do you remember of the Christmas party?
At the Sheridan Brook Hotel.
Yeah.
In the ballroom.
Yep.
I was about 4. And they got me and my 3 brothers up on stage, and together we sang Jingle Bells. And then I remember everybody laughing because when it came to the part saying ho, 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 I was really loud into the microphone.
Wow.
And that's all I remember.
What would they use that for, the wire weaving? What would it be used for?
I don't think anybody knows that.
Baskets, there were baskets that were
Yeah.
tops of.
I have no idea, all I know is my dad weaved wire there.
Well, and again, maybe totally off topic, I know I was once at not TRW, in St. Catharines, where they held strike.
Oh, yeah.
You were there too, I think, I think.
Yeah.
The Tyler factory. And they were weaving wire, making benches out of it. And now again, this is only 5 years ago versus 80 years ago, but
Wes Hill also worked there. And when I found that out, I remember a story my mother told me about Red Jr. going over the falls and those inner tubes. And she kind of left me with the impression that it was the big gossip around the plant that he was going to do this. And everybody was booking off work to go see it, including my dad with my mother.
Buildings in the distance are interesting too. There's old Table Rock, I think 1827. And you can see a lot more water, of course, going over the falls.
and this is a drawing too, so it's a little bit of fanciful as well. I think there's a few things, but was this, if you walk past this factory, what were the smells? Was it smelly? Was it not? There was obviously a chimney going, a water tower.
I don't remember the chimney, but I do remember the water tower.
I don't remember the water tower, but I don't remember the place smelling.
Okay.
But the guy that managed it lived down the Niagara Parkway. But it employed a lot of people in the Niagara area. I think this also at one time was, I could be corrected, but Marine Land, the original building of Marine Land, maybe that's where it went. But it was a prisoner of war camp. I think this was a prisoner of war camp.
No, that was up closer to Harry Olson's place.
Yeah, there was one there too, but I think this was also one.
Another one too, yeah?
Yeah, and I think the World War I prisoner camp was the Armory on
The
Armory
Armory,
Street.
yeah.
But I could be corrected, but I think, I'll tell you a little cute little story. It's a little off topic, but it'll be fast.
All right.
I worked for the Niagara Parks Commission for many years, and my building that I worked in was Oak Hall. And my area of responsibility was marketing and public relations. I remember an older gentleman come in and wanting to talk to somebody in charge. So he talked to me, he said, I used to live across the road. And he had this long German name. I said, oh, you were a prisoner of war camp. He said, yeah. He said, you Canadians treated me better than the Germans did. He said, I wanted to stay here. So then about a couple of years later, same experience. So I know there was definitely a prisoner of war camp over there.
Sure. Wow, great story, George.
Okay, so let's move on beyond sort of the factory aspect of it. All of you remember Pyramid Place, so it opens up in 1978. What's in there? What did you guys go? What did you experience? What was?
Well, O Canada A was there,
Okay.
one of the original tenants. And I can't think of anything.
They,
They were on the second floor, and of course, Tourist Association was there for many years.
They invited all the tour bus drivers for the grand opening. I remember I was driving sightseeing at the time and I went. And all I really remember is that Canada A thing.
Yeah, and they had the glass,
Rossi was in there.
frosted glass.
And they had a show with these like mechanical puppets
Yeah, I remember
Was
that.
that-
Yeah, I can't remember what it was, but
with a musical presentation anyway.
you know why it was built as a pyramid place? Because of the good luck from the pyramid. You know,
Yeah, at the time that was all the
every
rage.
time, you know,
about
if
the
you were
pyramid
in a pyramid, that you're going to get good luck all the
from the
time.
heavens.
See the pyramid under your bed, remember that, the pyramid suite.
Put a razor blade under a small pyramid, it would sharpen by itself.
Yeah, I don't know, is it owned by the Urge family now?
I
These buildings,
don't
I know they own the parking lot, and they own the skyline. And I think they own that building as well.
Any other memories of what going in the Pyramid Place? Or what was there? Anybody else?
There's a couple of eateries in there too.
But here's a little trivia for you.
All right.
When I was with the park, no, I was with the Skylon, I was the marketing director at Skylon. And the parking area where Pyramid Place was, there was this fellow from Quebec that came that wanted to rent that area, put on some type of show under a big tent. And he wanted to know if we'd rent. So we rented it out to him, and he put up this monstrous tent, and he had like acts where the people were in hoops and jump around and all that. It was the first Canadian appearance of Cirque du Soleil.
Wow.
But they didn't have that call at the time. But I remember it was half full. So what we had to do, they gave us, in the business of entertainment, they wanted us to paper it. That means give out free tickets to everybody you can. So you'd have an audience in there. So when the performers performed, they wouldn't be upset. That
Yeah,
there were
because there were people there.
So I remember getting this wad of tickets and handing it out to everybody. And they said, "What is it?" I said, "Well, I'm not sure. It's just they're going to jump around inside there." But it's funny, the pictures that evoke memories of the past.
Yeah.
You know. But a lot of people, there's a lot of trivias that are the firsts for Niagara Falls. Multitude of them. Alcoa. You know, I'm off base, but you can't get me going here.
I'll cut you off when I need to.
The United States, Alcoa, whatever it was. It started here in Niagara Falls. Niagara Falls, New York.
Oh, yeah, they got those big
It
five.
was called the
chimney things.
Pittsburgh Reduction Company.
Yeah.
And I write the blog for the Tour Association, so I just wrote this blog. And the Pittsburgh Reduction Company came from Pittsburgh to produce aluminum. And why they came here was because we have a lot of clay. If you're a gardener, you know, we have all kinds of clay here. And at that time, we had cheap electricity, so this is early 1900s. So those are two factors you need to have to produce aluminum. And when they moved here, the price of aluminum went from $8 a pound to $2 a pound. And then they were so successful, they went on to become the aluminum company of, aluminum company of America. So Alcoa started here in the Falls.
All right, back into this neighborhood.
Wow.
So the corner of Main and Ferry. It's this is a picture from 1963. H.G. Acres was in the offices in the upper floors. Bank then merged with the Bank of Commerce, and a new building was built. So this is was replaced by what's there today, and now we have cash money in that location. So we're back sort of on Main Street. Did anybody step foot in that bank on the corner there?
I don't think we were being in there.
But look at how ornate it is. I mean, you never see that today.
Oh, wait a minute, I guess I did. When I worked for Aldine in the flower shop, down by the hospital, take the deposit back there. End of the day, make deposits.
Right. So, okay, so we know what the bank is. Do you remember any of these street shops just down the street?
And that Niagara Farms, past the light to the right. And there was a Niagara Farms store down a little further.
Oh, it's down
Yeah,
here.
in there. There was a Niagara Farms store there in the 60s.
What was that, Deborah?
What's there now? I can't get my orientation.
Well, this whole block is a new building, I think, at least probably.
Is that where the guy with that nightclub? It used to be the
Yeah.
nightclub, and now
The nightclub was here, yeah.
And then the Ferris wheels on top, like that
Yeah,
corner?
yeah, that's that
Okay.
part, yeah.
Every building's had a nightclub now.
Jimmy Gordon's, I can see the
Oh,
sign
yeah,
at Jimmy
Jimmy
Gordon's.
Gordon.
Down here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everybody went to buy their Irish sweet stick.
That's right too, I forgot about
Yeah,
that.
because it was illegal.
Yeah, it was illegal.
It is
They
that?
don't know Irish sweeps? I even know what Irish sweeps.
Give me-
My
give me
grandpa
two
can
tickets.
explain what Irish sweeps tickets are.
It was very clandestine, okay, what do you want?
The horse race,
So the funny part about that is you can never find out if you won.
yeah.
But where do you go to find out, because it really did come from Ireland,
Somebody said, I got a ticket for the Irish.
I might still have one of those tickets, and
And then for weeks I'd be walking around wondering if they won.
but he had the cigar, and like,
But they didn't advertise it, right? You walked in
No.
and whispered that or something?
Oh, yeah, you had to do it.
3 knocks and a dance and...
Yeah, because they didn't have the tickets like they have today, I mean.
Okay, so that was in this store here. So whose store was that again, did you say?
Jimmy Gordon's.
Jimmy
It was
Gordon's.
called Gordon's.
So what was Jimmy like?
Didn't he have a cigar all the time?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Always
cigar.
smoking a cigar.
He's no different
Short
than
little
many of
man.
the, store operators today.
Had a hairdo like George's.
Yeah, that's right. And he never said much, eh?
No, he never said much. He always seemed was friendly to me, or,
Yeah.
Now we get the kid.
So what was he sell? Was it a smoke shop
It
and
was a
variety
smoke, you
store?
get a
Yeah, variety,
confectionery, pop and ice cream. He had
All the candies that you wanted as a kid.
big competition was over here, Orban's.
Yeah, that's right, Thorburns on this corner.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Love the Pepsi sign.
Yeah, Pepsi was much more prominent in Niagara Falls than Coca-Cola for some reason.
Because of the fact, oh, but then Coke was here too, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
there
Coke
was
was
a
here,
Coke
yeah,
factory.
Coke was here, but you seem to, like even downtown, Niagara Falls, you see the Pepsi signs.
And Niagara Falls has two downtowns.
Yeah, that's true. When you were talking about Clifton Hill being one downtown?
This Main
Oh, Main
Street
Street.
and
Well,
Wayne Street.
Yeah, a lot of people visiting think Clifton Hill is our downtown. Oh, yeah, that's, tourists from Toronto.
where all the people are.
down.
But I always grew up with downtown was like downtown Queen Street, but if you said uptown,
Yeah.
that was being in Ferry.
Yeah, you're right.
The reason why I'm pointing this out, there's actually a corner revealed, actually, it's still there, of the Pepsi sign. Actually, walked by there the other day and noticed it.
There's apartments above that, Jimmy Gordon's, and I remember my aunt, my cousin told me across the street above the stores or whatever, the apartment, they had the Pew House and their parents did or something, and they were in the apartment there. But she said there was a woman that lived above there that never came out, went anywhere. She just would be in that apartment all the time. There was
What
a
year
lot
is
of
this
apartments
store?
along there.
63.
63.
That would have been waiting for that.
Did everything, I think. Okay, I got everything there. So let's move up the hill a little bit. Now, we've got the church here, obviously the church built in 37. Current church was built in 1886. And this photos, this is from a postcard from 1907. I guess maybe I wanted to sort of deal a little bit on the church itself, and if anybody was in the congregation there, remembered any of the reverends. Went to any events, christenings, baptisms, weddings.
Again, I'm sorry, what year was this?
This is 1907, but it doesn't have to be 1907. It could be a wedding from.
Is that church still there, or is that the same one that's has a new entrance?
New entrance.
Yeah.
What is that?
That's the Lundy's Lane Memorial, Battle Memorial.
It looks different though. doesn't it?
Yeah, it
It's got
does.
like a canopy at the bottom, which I don't recall.
Yeah, is
That's
there
the steps.
on
The
it?
stairs are there. The stairs are there. It's just, I think, this is a postcard, and you can see the pixelation, the dots, or the fine details don't quite come out.
From where this photo was taken, were there not several wooden towers built in that area? For observation?
1907, they'd be gone, Deb?
Yeah, they'd be gone.
No,
the
still
last one
one.
is
The
still
last
there.
one's still
Still in
there.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were there before the towers in the falls here, because they were there to overlook the battle
Yeah,
of 1814, I guess.
and quite the popular place to go this was before the American Civil War.
Yeah. The first superintendent of the Niagara Parks Commission, he built one of them. And he was the superintendent of the park, and he also built, and he's buried there.
Okay, so growing up in Niagara Falls, did anybody visit the battlefield itself, or?
Yeah.
Still do.
Yeah.
Okay, so back when you were visiting as a kid, what was it like? Was it much different? Were there?
Not so much when I was a kid. I remember it being pretty much the way it looked now, with the exception of the new amenities.
Yeah,
It's
there's
a quiet place, yeah.
Yeah, there's a fellow
More
that
gravestones.
stands there, I don't know how many days a week, but a guy with a British flag,
It's Chris.
You know the guy,
Yeah,
Andy?
we know Chris, yes.
and he just stands there, and you talk to him. Yeah, it is kind of interesting. That's a great story. I don't know what it is, but But he stands there with these flags and he doesn't talk to you, he just,
All the time, like now?
yeah, he's there, I don't know how often, but every time
Here
I,
today,
every time we go out.
Thursday's his day.
yeah.
So he has certain days?
He's one of our members here. He's in here.
Ah, okay.
Never mind.
What's that all about?
Let's do it that some other time.
Oh, okay.
Well, you know what, it would be a sin to go past this photograph without mentioning the section.
Okay.
Of course.
Dalton, William Dalton.
William Dalton.
He just totally fascinated me with the book he wrote. I have a copy of it. He kept track of everybody buried there between the years of 1870 something, right up until about 1913. And like, he not only kept recorded their names, but if he knew them, he would tell you a story about them. One fellow was buried and he would say, oh, the weather was really cold, the snow was deep, we charged $2, Mr. Morris had to pull the body out of the gorge and stuff like that. And, it was a beautiful casket, and in them days they left little windows in caskets so you could see their faces. And then he would mention that, oh, you could see, you know, she looked very nice and at peace and stuff.
Of course, the first burial in Niagara Falls, the bigger child was buried here, my understanding.
And then he
Yeah,
would tell
all
you,
my
you know,
ancestors did.
all kinds of things that he knew about the person and who had actually
Now,
attended
is that
the
book at the
funeral.
library, Carrie?
What's that?
That book, is that,
I believe so.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
fascinating reading, like Pat says.
Anyway, I bought a copy of the book online of William Dalton's, and I cherish it because whenever I'm researching something, if I hit a name and I even suspect they may be buried there, I'll look it up and find out.
You got daredevils buried there, and original descendants of Niagara buried there. I mean, it's a fascinating place to visit.
Carol Suchek too, eh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was given, his plot was given by Kenny Sluggett
Yeah.
to Carla.
Okay, so Roxanne, you recognize that right off the bat? Did you? No?
It seems,
No? Okay, I thought you recognized it right away. So this is, at this point, Grandview Camp. Was operated by Clara Holmes and offered small, cool, and restful cabins, as well as access to a kitchen. 53 of the property was purchased by John Nagy, who added a modern motel and the Falls Manor restaurant.
okay.
Sean Nagy.
What's that?
Nagy.
Nagy?
And where was this located?
I bet it was Nagy, but anyways, but probably local vernacular, yeah.
Yeah, some of them are there. I don't
Oh,
know if they're
Manor.
the original
Like
ones.
that one in the far right.
Yeah, that's the office, isn't it?
Yeah.
But he still has cabins that he has in the back that he rents out year-round to people. And there's, I know at least one person that's been there about 15 years. He's the dishwasher. And he lives there.
So this opens up on Lundy's Lane. Certainly we had cabins. Does anybody, going past either this one or other ones, is it filled with, what is it, what is this? Maybe let's start with Grandview itself. Do you remember, have any memories of, what that setup was like? And
But what year would this be?
this, I don't have a date on this, but this
I don't
was at
think-
least, this is past 1953.
Oh, is that late? I wouldn't have taken that.
Falls Manor is a very popular restaurant amongst the locals.
So how long has it been a popular restaurant?
Oh,
They used to advertise roasted chicken at one time.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
remember they were famous for roasted
That's
chicken.
right.
yeah.
Bestwards was
Not
another
that I can
restaurant.
remember.
Years.
That used to be Bestwards down the road in Falls Manor.
I remember in the Falls Manor restaurant, there was, when you walk into the right, there was kind of like a coffee bar, and they had all the
Oh, all
mugs.
the mugs, yeah, I had one there.
Yeah.
Yeah, my father had one, they called him Jeep. During the war, he drove a Jeep.
Yeah, that was a coffee club.
Yeah.
Which they don't have anymore.
And they didn't serve you a cup of coffee, they always brought you over a big silver pot full of it and pop it on the
Yeah,
table.
still
boy,
do.
that's right, you're thinking.
Okay, so you walk in here,
I don't think, anybody been walking that building at 51?
I don't remember.
I wouldn't know.
It's something that I don't think.
so what's the place smell like, who was working there, who was serving you, any memories of any names or?
I don't think anybody's ever been in.
No, I meant when it became Fallsview
Oh.
Restaurant, when it became Fallsview,
Manor.
or Falls Manor.
Yeah.
So if you're in Falls Manor, who's serving you? Who's,
long-term servers, waitresses. I guess it's okay to call them that today. But they were ladies, there's always seemed to be older ladies.
Yeah.
It's like Hope's Restaurant, which is at the other end of town.
Yeah.
One of the things I can visualize in Queenston Heights Restaurant, there were always older ladies in little outfits,
Mhm.
you know, with the aprons and very proper. And it's kind of nice.
When I think of Hope's, I always think of that cat in the window, that
Oh,
clock.
yeah.
Till would swing in his eyes and go back.
Was that a restaurant?
what's that?
That?
This itself wouldn't have been, no, this was when it was part of the campground.
Okay.
So then, oh, but this was built, and then Falls Manor Restaurant was put into this building, so.
Now, this end of the town was developed later, like in downtown Niagara Falls, or Clifton Hill area. The campground started in the 1920s, and then that's when motels, the motel started here in the 1950s. And so this would have been part of that development.
How solid that's built.
Our family had a tourist home on River Road in the early 60s, and my aunt sold it in 65 because of the big motel boom on Lundy's Lane.
Yeah.
There was really no need for it.
Yeah.
But I can remember her filling the place every night all summer long.
Yeah.
So there was definitely the need at the time.
Clark, this is just interesting to me, and I don't know if this is a true story, but when I was researching the canneries in Niagara, I was told that these blocks, these are looking the same.
Yeah.
The person that was creating the mold, I assume was a man, and he wanted a design in it and had his wife put her foot into,
Each single block?
well, to make the mold.
Oh, the mold,
for
right,
them.
of course, the mold.
That had come up in the research, so it looks like these are the same as.
String, that's true.
That's a string, but then I was researching all those canneries, and that was part of where these blocks, I don't want to say concrete, because I know there's a difference between concrete and cement, like whatever they're made from.
Water?
But that was,
Water right
so it's just sort of, that could be true, and it's one of those stories.
Right.
And here they are, because I'm sure they were built in the same
They
place.
built the same
You
area.
know? Yeah.
there? Is Clark, is that water right there?
Where?
Right there, where you just put
Yeah,
that?
oh, yeah, it looks like.
Oh,
it's-
there.
No, just,
up
no,
behind by the tree.
yeah, there.
No, it's a building.
Our side of the
it's a
building.
Yeah, no, it's another building. It's another building with a roof.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Isn't that another cabin in the back there? Because they had those cabins.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know, like I said, they're still there.
But it does have that illusion.
yeah, it looks like water. That can't be water.
All right,
Oh my.
back down.
Main and Ferry.
Look at the electric car tracks.
Main Street and Ferry.
It's Main and Ferry. So it became Thorburns. 1898, A.C. Thorburn purchased Smith's Pharmacy on Main Street, and Thorburns was born. Back of the building was used as a police station and community jail, shown here in 1898, so just before it became Thorburns.
What is it?
That's a car.
Purcell and Company is the name above the door
Yeah,
there,
just
there's a pharmacy over here,
What
so,
they're selling.
don't know.
I'm surprised at the word pharmacy. I thought they were called drugstores in those early years, so I learned something today.
So memories of Thorburns. What was it like to walk into
Well, I
Thorburns?
remember one of the things, they actually delivered prescriptions, which is, I think, somewhat rare. Now, I don't know if it would have been as early as this photograph,
But not only was it a pharmacy, they also had a great collection of gifts you could buy.
yeah.
You know, nothing too expensive, but like if you needed a last minute gift for somebody, you could just duck into Thorburns and
Yeah.
satisfy yourself quite easily and find something that you want. I remember the store being pretty jammed up with stuff, other than just pharmaceuticals.
Okay, so who worked at Thorburns?
Well, again, I remember my mother referring to them as druggists. And there was a Thorburn. There was an actual Thorburn.
Okay, memories of him?
I have no memory because I never really went
I know there was two of them, there was one on Queen Street too.
Yeah, the other one,
Yeah.
because I used to deliver on my bicycle prescriptions for the, and a guy with the name of George Daly. And if you see that Christmas movie, you know, with Jimmy Stewart, the kid that was delivering the drugs was called George Daly, and he saved the, you know, life of somebody. Anyway, I'm way off.
Which part? I don't know which part.
Okay.
I think he was saying that he really, yeah, no, I think.
Okay, what this picture really gives you a fine example of is the old street railway.
Yeah.
Ernest Green wrote about this. And like in the mud and snow, it was just hell.
By the time you were a kid, was it still there?
They would come up, yeah, they would come up on the trolley, and half the time it would slip off the rails and they'd have to put it back on. And the horses weren't very well kept. They could barely make it up the incline at Ferry Street. And at times it was so bad, a lot of the men that were riding it would just jump off and walk because it was faster. And then I think it was old Thomas Street was quoted as saying, no, maybe not him, but farmers from the outlying areas were quoted as saying, why would you pay a nickel to ride from Main and Ferry down to the center when you could walk on a good board plank for free? They always thought it was such an extravagance. Yeah, Ernest Green wrote that, and it was.
I'm amazed with Pat's knowledge.
And then just down the end of the street, Delmaways, where it turned around at Culp Street, they would put it on some kind of a mechanism that had to be turned by hand. And it would seize up and all kinds of problems. But where it did turn at Culp Street, they called it Land's End.
Now, I think you were there. I think you're in a different life now, and previous to that, I think you were there.
Georgia lived half my life in days gone by.
That's great.
There was another pharmacy, it was a land, on the other pharmacy at the other end, and that's why it was Land's End.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Horses,
so,
of course, it's just down the road.
Yeah. okay, so a little bit more contemporary. I was surprised when Carrie put this in my stack. I even went into there. What was here before this hotel complex? Does anybody,
Stevens Hotel? No?
Stevens is still there.
Steve's, I think, still up the road. Yeah. Looks
right
like
across the road from us?
tour van there, on the right.
Did they finish building that high-rise, whatever?
They
it is?
stopped because of the money that was being used to build that was questionable.
Is it still
Oh, yeah, remember,
unfinished?
Yeah,
never mind, I won't even go there.
No,
Is it still unfinished?
no, it's completed now, but I remember, you remember when?
Yeah, there were quite a few unsavory characters that used to hang out front of the place, and I'm not gonna mention any names,
No.
but I remember reading that they would actually hang out on that parking meter, talk business, and not realizing there was a bug on the parking meter. And that's how they all got cut. That's a true story.
Now that's archival material we got.
But I don't know any names.
Over here.
This looks like the Statue of Liberty.
I remember reading that, that was in the review. Yeah.
You know who might know? I was just thinking, because Garda Clark's husband was an officer in this beat. And I think he, just as a side to all this, and I've just talked with Sarah just in conversation that it'd be interesting to talk with Garda to see if any of the stories he told her, if he did, would be allowable. Like, I don't know if enough time's gone by, but.
Right, statute of limitations.
He's talked about the
whatever.
teak, the shack here that they had, their hut. She's told me stories that I won't say because I don't know if we're allowed to.
But you know, the
It'd be
library
interesting
is such a
to
great
know.
source of vertical files,
Mhm.
which I access on different occasions, because you can research a topic. For example, if you're a well-known person in the city, or something like this, it will have a vertical file on it, right, Carrie? And I told Wayne Thompson one time, I said, Wayne, you know, I know all about your life. What do you mean? I said, there's a vertical file on you, which there is, I think. And I can tell you the whole history of his life, and it's all in there. It's there.
And moving up the street just a little bit, again, a building that you guys would recognize, I bet, but this was actually just up, it was actually next to the Maple Leaf.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
Wonderful, so Crane Brothers, who are seen here, the flower and seed store, began its operation in 1904. It was owned by Stephen and Darcy Crane, which I presume are the two in front of us. Torn down in 1910 to make room for a larger two-story brick building. And then that same building, after this building, became a winery, a furniture store, and currently home of the medical center up there. So nobody will remember this building, but what was put up afterwards, I'm just curious if anybody remembers the winery in there, the furniture store, or anything else before it became a medical building.
Well, it was electronic building too, wasn't it, at one time?
Swans Electric.
Swans Electric?
Yeah.
Okay, so Swans, what do we remember about Swans?
Well, he's still around, he lives on the Parkway.
It was Swalm.
Swalm? Swalm?
It's W-A-L-M.
Swalm.
Not to be taking up your valuable time or anything, but in the 1890s, remember Nathaniel Dett?
I don't remember.
Became a famous musical composer and pianist and stuff. His brother, with a couple of other friends, was at home along here somewhere, and it was Halloween Eve, and they were up to some mischief. And the man came out the door with a gun and fired a shot, not meaning to hurt anybody, but he hit young Arthur Dett in the head, and the young boy died the next day. So the man's name was Crawley, and he left real quick. And the next day, a local detective found him and his wife on the American side getting ready to board a train to go somewhere. So they did catch him, but they did give him a lenient sentence because it was kind of sort of accidental. Didn't really mean to hit the kid. He just wanted to scare them, and I think he ended up getting 7 years or something. But he lived in a home right along here. I don't know the exact property.
And the Detts lived where the car washes.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I don't think I'm going to spend a lot of time on this one unless, again, this is the Victoria Fountain, now out in front of the museum. Actually, I'm going to skip on from this because I don't think, again, I'm not looking for names and all that type of thing. I think we can spend a bit more time on this one potentially. So just further on, down on me, and we're running a little bit, tight on time. I don't want to take up everybody's time too much. So Reed's, grocery store, Food Mart, sorry. This picture was in 1946. This building was constructed before 1845 by John Evans and was formerly a hotel. At one point, Stamford Township Council meetings were held in the hotel before this building that we're in was built. And Petrullo's is in here now. So, did anybody shop at Reed's? Was it still Reed's by the time you guys were growing up? You came uptown.
Clark, where again is this? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Okay, so it's to the, it's both 3 stores over from Pier towards Stanley on Main. Petrullo's Florist now.
So that would have been like the Sicilian bakery next door there?
No,
This way further?
that's on the same side as the theater was.
Yes,
What theater?
The theater.
the Princess, or the
Theater.
Hollywood.
Oh,
So, the funeral home is just over here.
oh.
And that looks like me, because that's some of the
Patterson's,
original
you talking about
buildings.
Patterson's?
Okay.
Patterson's.
Yeah.
So this was beside the theater, Princess Theater?
The theater was like over here,
It's down far.
and Patterson's is over here. Pier Street's just over here.
Davy Automotive Building, maybe?
Yeah, you're right, I think that's what it is.
Sure looks like it.
Yeah,
Right now it's Petrullo's.
It's Petrullo's now. So Davy Automotive, you think was
yeah, I
in
think
there?
that's
for-
right.
So, I think I've heard that too from someone else.
It was a parts place, you went and needed parts.
Okay, so Davy Automotive, so who was, obviously Davy was a person, so did anybody know Davy or?
I don't know, but
I think that was his last name.
yeah, and I think their family's been around for years and years.
Did anybody go in there? Did you guys,
Oh, I've been in there
so what was it like?
back in the 60s when it had the counter, had about anything you needed. Back in the 60s, you used to drive in junk cars.
And one part fit all the cars.
Just about.
What did it smell like in there? Was it a normal store? Was it?
No, it wasn't like a greasy like a garage or anything. You just never paid much attention to any smells.
Right. Okay. Last two are those ones that Carrie brought. 'Cause I thought that those were good ones. Where are they? Where are those two good ones? Oh, you got them there? Oh, right, thanks. So the fire hall, I don't have pictures of these. So I'll
Well, I
go
was a
blank.
captain there in 1960 as a student. You know how they have these contests? Where you have the students for the day or something.
Oh, yeah.
And I became the captain of the day, and you know who was the real captain there? Was Wayne Thompson's father, Stan Thompson. He took me under his wing, and I have a photograph somewhere, although I donated about 9 boxes, banker's boxes, to the library, and a lot of the stuff is there. But that's my claim to fame. I was the captain on the day.
Okay, now, Stan Thompson, he was the fire captain,
He
wasn't
was
he?
the fire captain.
And did he live on First Avenue?
He lived on,
No.
yeah, he did.
Near St.
And the house-
When I worked at
No,
St.
no, he lived near the municipal pool.
Oh, okay.
And he has 3 houses that he built. They're all the same.
Okay.
Okay, so when you're captain for the day, what did you do? What did you?
I don't remember.
No.
I just-
You got a badge, you got a badge, you got a cap, and you went home.
Having that picture, I don't know how I became the captain of the day, but my mother was very proud of the pictures.
If you take a look at the website, that's located on our own website, the page rather, it's got another photo that we acquired. And it is many years after that, it's in the 50s. And it would have been maybe something George is talking about, where there's all school children in the front. And they all have little fire hats on, so I don't know if that's your
Yeah, I was in-
honorary
I was
fire
in
hat when
probably
you went there for a visit. But
Grade
there's-
7 or so. I was in Valley Way, which is one of the oldest schools in.
What year would that have been, George?
Let's see, back up, 44.
Count the years.
Around 53, I
Yeah,
guess.
so it might be even George in the
George, you
photo.
photo.
Did I look like a captain?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, I
I'm gonna have
remember
to
going
look
to
at
St.
that
Pat's
picture now.
in October every year. Fire department used to come around the school and used to have those fire safety things. And then you would sit there, and they would give everybody a red fire chief's hat, and then they would do a demonstration, show you how smoke and fire work, and they put the ball in that glass tube, and boom, the ball would shoot out. That was the big climatic moment. And then for 3 weeks, we'd have fire drills at the school. They would just ring the bell and everybody had to get out of the school, and that was always fun because they didn't interrupt the classes. Yeah, I remember the red fire hats they used to give everybody.
James, what were you gonna say?
Oh, well, it's not that photo there, but the Stanford Fire Hall, it would have been my great-grandfather. He was a fire chief there. Monroe is the last name. And then him and his brother were sort of in charge, from what my grandpa has kind of told me.
That was a volunteer firemen's organization.
Yeah, yeah, volunteer firemen.
I'm a member of that organization now.
Okay.
We're not fighting on fires.
We just hang around firemen's parks.
It's evolved, hasn't it? The other one I was going to, so the other one Carrie brought was the Drummond Branch Library. So when the old library was on Main Street. Had some library discussion down in Chippewa about that library. I guess, does anybody remember going in the old Drummond library?
Yeah, it was like, you know, today we go to the Chippewa or to the Stanford Center branches. Well, that was one of the branches we go to.
Yeah.
Before Victoria.
Very
Deborah, you remember?
small though,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
I mean, the
small.
building is small.
So what was it like when you went in? It was just,
It
Like
was
a library.
and it smelled, I remember that it smelled like wood. And I remember the old smell of the wood. Remember how you used to pull out the thing to find?
Oh, yeah, the little
Oh, yeah,
file
that's
box.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
Very prim and proper, all the librarians, just like they are today, right, Carrie?
Right.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
and it was small, for sure.
Okay, do you remember any of the
I
librarians?
remember Dorothy Van Slyke, but I don't think she was there, was she? At
No,
this?
she was downtown, wasn't
She was downtown, yeah.
But she was the best.
There was a Miss Bessie, I think. Does that name ring a bell?
Yeah, I've heard of her, but I didn't know her. Yeah, she was.
Pass along, Patrick.
Everybody was a miss.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it was.
Now, did not one of the Morses donate that property to the library? So they could build there? I think, and the Morses own the property.
They own it now.
It was donated by Mrs. Morse to the city
Oh,
for a public library project.
now don't they own it now?
Yeah, they own it now, so I don't know
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
if it was, we'll take it back later thing, or it was sold and then sold back.
Prospect House is right beside it.
Yeah.
And the Prospect House at one time was located in the park. The Prospect House.
Further back.
That's right,
That
yeah.
was moved from the park because there were 4 hotels in the park at one time. I think the Prospect was in the park.
By the park, you mean?
Park proper, Queen Victoria Park.
Okay, oh, okay.
That was before the
Gotcha.
park took it over in 1885.
Mhm.
I had my grade 1 Royal Conservatory piano exam downstairs in the library.
Yeah, in that little theater that they
Yeah, they
had
had
there.
yeah, it looked like a big thing to me.
In the 1890s, there was a big fire at Morse and Sons. And at the time, there were a lot of people on the street who were pulling out what they could. Because at the time, Morse actually made coffins. And they were pulling out a lot of these coffins and all kinds of furniture and everything. And one old man who was standing across the street was quoted as stating, "I haven't seen that many coffins since the cholera outbreak of '55.
Oh, good for you, Pat. I'm amazed. What a memory.
He's still-
You should talk to him separately for a couple hours. Years ago, when I was with the park, I went around and I did something kind of what you're doing now. But I talked to old folks because I joined the park in 1980, I believe, and I talked with old timers.
Wow.
And I put them on tape, and I remember talking to a fellow named John Slynn, who was the original gardener for Oaks Garden Theater in the park. And all of the, I don't know if the park kept them, but they were fascinating stories. I just turned, and he was as sharp as a tack. He lived over here on Main Street on the second floor apartment. And I went in and I said, "Tell me about your life."
Wow.
And what do they call those oral histories?
Pardon?
Oral history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's a great project for somebody who gets some type of grant where you can just say, you know,
Go around talk to
We've interviewed
somebody all
about
the
6
time.
people in the last 2 years.
but there's a lot of people that
A lot of
are
people.
fascinating.
Can I
Like
make,
this would be one.
can I make a pitch for the next one?
It'd be great.
So, thank you, everybody, this has been great. I just wanted to make a little plug for the next one. For anybody who's from the Stamford area, or who just want you, I mean, you don't have to be from there, but if you remember things, or you want to come and just listen, the Stamford Library has another opportunity to come together like you guys did. So it's the 17th of August at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It'll be at the library in the room that they have at the back. We'll get together and we'll do the same kind of thing. Talk about the Stamford area and all
That
that.
was really good. I really
Yeah,
enjoyed that.
yeah.
Great.
Lots of reminiscing.
I don't have to. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
And
you.
hopefully you come up to the next one.